How are we doing? All set up? Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us on a very promising afternoon in Olympia. It's promising for many reasons, one of which Trudy and I just had a great walk at lunchtime, a little jaunt, got to see some wonderful middle schoolers from Port Orchard, and we're happy we're helping them with a $3 billion injection of capital to invest in our young people, which includes increasing expenditures per pupil and $120 million for special education funding. We're really happy to continue the upward progress in our schools. I ran into Anamar Kasi, President of the University of Washington. We're celebrating some new investments in our capital campuses to increase our scientific knowledge. And that's not to let the Cougars be denied, because we're going to start the Institute for Clean Energy with the Cougars in Tri-Cities that I'm really excited about. And to top it off, Trudy and I just happened to walk by the new child care center on site on the Capitol campus, and we met Brendan Batiste, who works for our Department of Corrections, and he had a little 4-month-old named Amani, unbelievably cute young lady that's going to be a beneficiary of our new on-site center. And you've heard me declare my 2 new grandchildren as the cutest grandchildren in the state of Washington. We are reassessing that actually after meeting Amani, but we're really excited about getting this on-site child care. We're excited about the $500 million of investment I've proposed in my budget to increase access to Washingtonians to child care. So anyway, it was a good walk. But the more promising thing of statewide import is that we're moving forward on the things that I've asked the legislature to move forward on. We've had tremendous demonstration of a desire for big housing improvements to end this homelessness, to be able to remove people out of homelessness encampments, get them into safe housing, deal with mental health, deal with chemical addiction. I'm just hearing really positive things of openness to doing the multiple things we need to do, and I'm looking forward to that discussion continue. Good support for gun safety and public safety, both in multiple bills. We're just moving forward. I'm just feeling really positive about this. Good discussion going on about increasing the availability of property to build housing on. I think there's a recognition fundamentally we do need more housing in the state. Legislators have expressed that to me, so I feel positive about that. We've had good testimony about the bill to try to reduce the horrendous loss of life from impaired drivers. I was impressed by the testimony. I'm fully supportive of this effort to provide an increased safety that are now taking the lives of hundreds of Washingtonians with impaired drivers. This is a public safety issue. This is a crime issue. And I am convinced if we do this, it will reduce the number of people who are impaired and committing this crime in the state of Washington. So all systems go, and I'm pleased to be here. So with that, who would like to start?
Mayor,
yes.
Where do you stand on your support for the wealth tax that was introduced by Democrats? And are there any concerns about the potential legal challenges for that for you?
Well, first off, let me say I'm appreciative of the leadership that are bringing ideas to bring more equity to our state. We've made progress. We've got the tax cut that's going to 400,000 folks in lower income brackets. And I'm very pleased on that. That's going to get $1,200 in the pockets of lower income people. That restores a little equity in our system. We've embraced the capital gains tax, which has put the burden not on middle class working people, but those of considerable wealth. So first off, I want to express my appreciation for leaders who are continuing to think about this issue. So I'm not opposed to this concept of a property tax on intangible assets, also called a wealth tax. I haven't seen the specifics of it. I'm not opposed to it. I'm going to continue these discussions with legislators. And you ask about enforceability. From my relatively cursory review, I think it meets all the constitutional requirements in the state of Washington. I haven't seen full briefing on that, but I don't see any constitutional hurdles. There are, like any new revenue source, issues of enforcement, how it's enforced, who exactly could be covered by it. It's going to be the ultra wealthy, I know, under the proposals. So those questions are things that I'll look forward to talking to legislators about.
Governor, there's another piece of legislation I can speak on the break fix.
Yes.
I think that by Jesse Solomon. And I think the idea, and some others bipartisan, John Braun's on there, and Christian Willis. I think the idea is it would keep a gross misdemeanor, but then have like a suspended sentence or time served if you successfully complete
Yeah.
treatment. Is that a proposal that you favor, or sort of a broad approach for trying to get a fix on this?
So I haven't looked at the specifics, but that general concept, we want to get people into treatment. We want them to break their chemical addiction behavior. We want to get them the treatment that we know that works. That can include medically assisted treatment, which has been very, very effective. That's what we really want to get people ultimately to break this addictive behavior. But I do believe having some potential criminal sanction to have a people for incentive of the folks who aren't willing to get chemical addiction treatment to maintain some method to do that. The kind of thing you've described, a potential kind of a deferred prosecution issue, which has proven successful in our drug courts, the kind of things that I'm interested in. I haven't seen the specifics of the bill, but it sounds like I'm pleased that I think the legislators are heading in the right direction in this regard. Make sure people get treatment, make sure we get them off of drugs, and preserve a mechanism to do that, which might include some sanction for the relatively small people who won't go into treatment. Yeah.
Governor, many big city mayors are calling for the preemption law to go through because they want to be able to control some gun control in their own areas. And do you buy that? Do you support that, or do you buy the argument it would create an unfair patchwork of laws throughout the state?
On this subject, given the violence we are suffering, I am more inclined to favor reducing gun violence than concerns of that nature. I think the problem is so acute. We are losing hundreds of people to this carnage. What used to be a fist fight is now 2 homicides. And we're seeing that time after time after time in our state. So in general, I would be supportive of an attitude to allow local communities to make this decision. I understand the argument against it, but we cannot allow this carnage to overtake our state. But let me just say, we shouldn't wait for the cities, right? There are 3 bills this year. I understand the one bill that I'm particularly interested that would require some basic safety training. Actually, I think it was the exec data committee the other day. It's making good progress. I'm hearing good things. People understand how important it is. If you're going to have a deadly instrument, having some basic safety training makes sense. And I'm getting good response to that. And I'm very, very pleased by that. But I do want all 3 of these bills to pass. There's no reason they shouldn't.
Governor, in your proposed transportation budget, you pushed back the completion of the North Spokane corridor. There's been a lot of concern in the last week from lawmakers, constituents, including the Spokane Democratic delegation. Mm-hmm. Can you, I guess, explain your decision to do that, and are you looking at other ways to fund that or to keep that funded?
Yeah, well, listen, I'm a supporter of this project. In fact, it was originally came up with dollars for it. I've been a supporter since Tom Foley started this project, maybe in the late 60s or 70s. So I hope to move that forward. And yes, we are looking for alternate means to accelerate the project. We would, given our druthers, clearly we would not want to see a delay on the project. What has happened is the Department of Transportation, as with many projects around the state, not just this one, have faced several new conditions that have occurred. Number one, costs have gone up dramatically. Number 2, revenues have gone down, the money that's available to the state to actually do these projects. And number 3, as a result, the state has had to delay some of these projects because costs have gone up, revenues have gone down, and also the availability of contractors has been constrained as well. So they've had to make some really hard decisions. They made decisions to delay some projects on the Gateway project, I think on Highway 18, both in western and eastern Washington. And these are hard decisions for any community. I do know how concerned the Spokane community is about this. We know how important this is to the community. And I know sometimes people think, well, why Spokane? Well, it's all across the state of Washington. These projects have had to be delayed because higher costs, less money available, less contractors available. And I'm hopeful that we can find something to not have to do this delay. And I'll be working with legislators for any creative ideas they do to avoid this delay. It's an important project. I hope that there's some success there.
Governor Inslee, you mentioned the proposal to lower the legal blood alcohol level. We know that that's an effort to reduce impaired driving, save lives. The other argument, though, from small businesses like restaurants, bars, and those who sell alcohol, they say this could put them out of business. Can you share your thoughts on that?
Well, we lose hundreds of people to impaired drivers. innocent. At least half of these people are totally innocent. They're not very good customers when you've lost your life. And we ought to be thinking of those customers primarily when we think about this issue. We cannot allow that to continue. I am convinced, and this is something I've been working on since I cut my teeth as a prosecutor over in SELA. And we tried to clean up SELA that used to see impaired driving was recreational pursuit. Then we learned how deadly it is. So this has been a long time effort on my behalf. And I'm convinced that this change will encourage people to moderate their drinking and driving. I think it will send a message to people to moderate some of their drinking and driving behavior. So I'm convinced it will save lives over the long term. They've had good success with it in Utah, as you know, and we ought not to be afraid to save lives in this state. And I just don't believe that you can say those hundreds of lives just don't count enough compared to, some of the profits that some business might have. You got to value what's valuable in life. And I just have a hard time having somebody come up to a bar and say, my sister just got killed because of a drunk driver, and have the barkeep saying, well, that's okay, I got to make a buck. It's just not acceptable. So we got to value life in our state.
Governor, you've been pushing the right-of-way safety initiative, talking about removing the camps along the right-of-way for quite a bit. WashDOT said took account 2,000 encampments over the last couple of years. Since you started the initiative, the WashDOT says there have only been 13 sites been cleared or in progress of getting cleared, and 225 people have been offered shelter. Yet the city of Seattle seems to be doing removals 3 or 4 a week. Are you happy with the progress that the state is making on the right-of-way clearings?
Well, I'm happy that we've used the money efficiently and effectively, and we are moving people, but we have limited dollars. The Department of Transportation only can spend what the legislature will give it. And they've used this effectively and are moving people. They have focused their efforts on some of the larger encampments. If you think of the Dearborn encampment, which was huge at the intersection 990 and 405. So they've really focused their efforts on these really large encampments. But they can only do it with the money that's been allocated. Now, I was very assertive with the legislature to try to get dollars to do this, and we got a slug of dollars, but it's clearly not enough to solve this problem. And let me address why this is expensive. It is not a solution for Washington to clear that encampment in Seattle and simply have those people go back to Woodland Park. That doesn't solve the problem for Washingtonians or people who live in Seattle. You've got to get those people somehow housed to be successful. And that costs money and it takes time. And I wish I could say we could do this on the cheap. A lot of things you can solve without dollars. This is not one of them. Because we have to build housing, because fundamentally we don't have a place for these people to live. There are not enough roofs for people to live in the state of Washington. We need new housing. We need a place for them to go. Many of these people have chemical addiction problems that have to be treated if they're going to succeed. Many of these people have mental health problems that have to be treated. Where we have found success is providing all of those things in one shop, like this Catalyst building where we moved 100 people off right away in Spokane, and they have 4 full-time mental health counselors, and they have 2 chemical addiction counselors like 12 hours a day, right on site. It's tremendous. But you need to do all of those things in order to succeed. So this is something that takes substantial investment. It takes something that's comprehensive, and it takes longer than you and I would like, because we'd like this to be done by Tuesday. But we are succeeding. We are closing these camps. Camp Hope is down to maybe 100 people or something in Spokane. We are getting places, but it's limited by the dollars we have available. That needs to increase if we're going to solve this problem, and I'm asking legislators to do that.
Just to follow up, the KCRA, the Regional Homelessness Authority, on its website said there have only been 3 right-of-way sites cleared on state property in the year that the initiative has been in place in Seattle.
Yeah, those are some of the biggest ones, and if we had 3 times as much money from the legislature, we would have cleared 3 times as many encampments. So they're right. We have not had the investment available to the Department of Transportation to do all of the work we need to do. And the legislature can help address that by making large investments in housing, as I have asked them to do. When we get the money, we get the progress. When we get the money, we get the housing. When we get the money, we get the mental health and the chemical addiction. But if we don't get the money, we don't get any of those things. That's why I'm asking the legislature to step up to the bar and make some difficult decisions to make these investments so we can triple and quintuple and go by a factor of 10 of the work we're doing. Now, here's the reason I mention this. I think it's really important to realize we are moving the needle. We are moving people out of these encampments. We're running in the right direction, but we need to run faster. And I'm asking the legislature to join me in running much faster in this state against this scourge. That's the missing ingredient, is investment. And that's what we need to do.
Governor,
Yeah.
the bill in the House on police pursuits would allow for reasonable suspicion, apparently has bipartisan support. It does not have support in the Senate. Senator Dingler says she thinks it's problematic. She does not want more police chases. Where do you fall on this? Will you back legislation that would allow for more pursuits?
So I am open to reasonable ideas to allow some more pursuits in other given circumstances. So I'm open to those ideas. We'll see what they produce.
Governor, I'm curious how many meetings, if any, you've been part of to discuss the proposals for floating offshore wind farms of Grace Harbor County and Pacific County? And if you have been briefed on that, what was your initial reaction?
Well, I've had dozens of discussions about floating wind farms over the years, and I don't know the exact count, but dozens. It's something I've been very interested in for years, as you know. There are tremendous resources off our coastline. The technology is now mature, so they're in the water around the world producing huge amounts of electricity at very, very low cost. And so the technology is now mature to be able to move forward. In order to do so, we have to listen to communities to make siting decisions. That's very important. We need to have collaboration with tribal communities, for instance, who have interests frequently in this. So I haven't had specific things recently about Grays Harbor specifically, but I have an intense interest in finding a way to simultaneously listen to communities and use this asset. It is an enormous asset. We have some of the best wind in the world off the Washington coastline, and it's just free energy willing to be taken. I'm sorry you got me started on this subject, but it's good. But let me share some view though. But I always believed it would go first in California, as it has. So they've had 5 leases now for offshore wind in California. It's a real thing. It's happening. We always believed it would be first in California because their coastline is closer to the population centers. So you don't have to have a long transmission line from the field to where the population centers are. So we always knew it was going to go first in California, frankly, and work its way north. Tremendous job opportunities in this industry because it's not just engineers who design this, it's welders and steel workers and tugboat crew that'll move things back and forth. I've seen how much industry there is looking at some of their work they've done in Scotland, Norway, and other places. So it's a huge potential asset for the state of Washington, I will say that. And I'll have many more conversations before something gets in the water.
Governor, Seattle City Councilmember Shama Sama announced she's not seeking re-election. What are your thoughts on her legacy and impact she had on the city?
I hope she enjoys private life. Any other simple questions?
You've made a big emphasis this year, and in a way that I don't think I've seen you in the past on homelessness, your big housing bond proposal. Like you said, we know the state has put money into programs.
Right.
I was just wondering, this has been a crisis that's been building for a long time. The city of Seattle's had a homelessness emergency
Right.
since, I think, for 10 years or more. Mm-hmm. Is this something that you think that maybe the state should have, taken this kind of emphasis on sooner, and maybe you should have, to get some of these projects going so we maybe wouldn't be in this crisis? And was there a moment that made you say, now it really is the time? Was there something different that changed that made you say, we really have to go big on this year?
Well, I don't usually drive in the rearview mirror, so that's not how I think. I'm thinking forward rather than backwards. But since you've asked me to do that, I'll just make a couple comments about our situation. Look, in the early days of my governorship, we had to generate billions and billions of dollars to satisfy the McCleary decision. You'd have to say that was a priority. Maybe in the second half, we've had to do huge lifts to get a clean energy effort going on climate change and a whole host of other issues from mental health, and we had a lot of other challenges. We were making and have been making progress in my budgets. We've increased our commitment about $50 million a year for the last 5 or 6 years. So we have been doing things for homelessness. I don't want to short sell myself on these efforts. But over that period of time, we have found that they work. Investments do get people out of homelessness, but we haven't done enough. And it has become apparent that we're going to have to go big or go home. And that's what I'm asking the legislators to do. This is not a self-correcting issue. $50 million investments are not adequate to this task. And now we're asking them to take the bold action that is needed. So I don't feel profound regret in this regard. And by the way, homelessness, we're not the only community suffering for this. This is in many, many states. The states with the best economies frequently are having the most homelessness. Why? Because we have so many people moving here. Look, I'm kind of proud of my state for a lot of reasons being the best place to live, the best place to do business, maybe the second best place to work. Well, as a result, we've been hugely successful in the last 11 years in our state. We're ranked at the top of many, many ranking services, but as a result, you get a lot of people moving here from other states. And if you don't build the housing for them, which we have not done, you get a homelessness crisis. That's why I keep coming back that this is fundamentally a housing crisis. Yes, we need mental health intensely. Yes, we need chemical addiction treatment. Yes, we need more officers on the beat. But you can't do chemical and behavioral health unless you get people under a roof. So we need to build more roofs. It's a long way of saying no. I think it's done a darn good job. Yes.
The conservative Washington Policy Center came out with a report last week saying that they estimate 10 cents a gallon right now is attributed to the carbon offsets from your administration before the auction stuff. Do you buy into that? And are you still staying with the prediction of maybe just 1 or 2 pennies a gallon going forward?
Well, I would just say this. The oil and gas industry projections around any of this are halfway between hogwash and baloney. I don't know which, pick your adjective. To blame gasoline prices on something that has hardly even gone into effect is just baloney. Look, these people are making obscene profits because they are using the Ukraine war, which constrained global oil prices, to jack up and make billions of dollars into their pockets. That's what's going on. And I'm not happy about it. That's the reason these prices have gone up. To blame price increases in Arkansas and New York and Connecticut on Washington climate laws is nuts. And they have been jacking up their prices in all 50 states. What are the price increases in 49 states got to do with our climate laws? They're raising their prices because they got us over a barrel, because we're still hooked to oil, and they're using the Ukraine war global supply as an excuse. And if you'll notice, I'm not particularly happy about this, and I'll tell you why. This is an industry that has imperiled our lives and the health of our children by massive, deceptive campaigns to try to prevent doing anything about their pollution. And their pollution is killing thousands of people today in our country. Kids with asthma, respiratory disease, mudslides, tornadoes, rainstorms, drought. And they have spent decades lying to the American people about this, and they are continuing to do so. There was a report 3 days ago that looked at the Exxon oil. We're supposed to trust Exxon oil on this subject of gas prices? Exxon oil in 1970, we have now learned, their own scientists predicted what was going to happen to our planet if they continued to pollute. And they predicted exactly what's happening. They knew in 1970 they were causing mortal threats to our lives, and they tried to deceive us, unfortunately, effectively, with deception about this problem. And they are continuing to do so about this gas price issue. And this is a continuing effort to line their pockets and expose our children to this risk because of their pollution. And it will not stand. And fortunately, they're making no progress in Olympia. I can Proud to tell you our state is leading the nation in fighting climate change. Legislators here are going to continue to do that. We're not backing up 1 inch on this issue. We're going to protect our children.
One question?
By the way, I'll send you the Exxon report. It'll boggle your mind what these people did. 1970, they knew they were going to cause mortal threat to life on this planet, and they spent decades lying to us about it, just like the tobacco industry. We saw this movie before in the tobacco industry, and they're continuing it. They're continuing to refuse to take action to move to clean energy. Now they're afraid because they see electric cars coming on here like crazy, right? People know electric cars work really, really well, selling like hotcakes. So they are afraid they're not going to be on this gravy train for another 100 years. Rightfully so. Good luck. Be healthy. Go see that cute kid. She'll make you happy. Thank you.